And we begin in Uganda this morning on the Daily Monitor. Big story there says, Cabinet discusses Iron Sheets scandal. It says, way forward, implicated ministers are scheduled to meet President Museveni on separate days this week to explain themselves, and were reportedly told in the Monday meeting that they could be prosecuted for abuse of office, which under Article 118 of the Constitution would render them susceptible to being censured. And that's on page 6 this morning. Also, pictures there, of course. It says, final journey, Museveni, Kabaka praise Najenda at send-off. Lawmakers want quick answers from NSSF investigation. It says the Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development, Ms. Betty Amongi, is expected to appear before MPs tomorrow over the NSSF probe. All the stories this morning you can find. Justice Kakuru takes a bow. That's one of the things. And also cousins flogged, cleansed for incest.
Wow.
All right. I saw pretty interesting. I saw a video yesterday where there was something like this, and then it was followed by a white woman saying, why can't black people leave these things for white people? All right, final story. Women changing the face of real estate and the construction industry on page 22. These are the stories that we can find on the Daily Monitor.
All right, now let's move over to the Namibian. And on the front page of the Namibian, the big story says, Kati could pocket 42 million Namibian dollars from 1% oil block sale. Australia's biggest oil producer joins Namibia's oil hunt. Pan Continental has 1.5% royalty revenue clause on future oil sales. Vasafall murder accused apologizes. We also have at the top of the paper, oops, Nampa overcharges UNAM with 67 million Namibian dollars. And we see here, Drag Night Namibia kicks off third cycle with Vegas, glitz and glamour. South Africa records 2% economic growth for 2022. And the final story there says, over 12,000 gambling machine owners not registered. Namibia has 13,000 gambling machine operators. Registration extended to August, and Business Association says gambling law destroying SMEs. That's in the category of Baba Ijebu in Nigeria, right?
Yes, kind of.
All right. Okay, and that's all we can take this morning on the Namibian. Let's head over to the west of the continent.
All right, in Nigeria this morning on the Punch newspapers, fuel stations, others reject old Naira, banks ration cash. Well, like we've been saying, the Supreme Court might say, but the CBN needs to also...
But I believe that the CBN and... my goodness.
Yeah, and if Nigerians don't feel safe, if businesses don't feel safe, then they will not. And of course, it also is very dependent on what they experience when they go to the banks. So if they go to the banks and the banks are refusing to, trade or to exchange that currency, then they will not collect it from customers. So we might see something in the news, but what is the reality on ground? That's what we need to actually figure out. How many people have gone to the banks and the banks are, willing to take the old Naira notes or exchange old Naira notes, with them. So they're mostly reacting to what the reality is on ground, regardless of what the CBN says. Aviation fuel hits 840 Naira as airlines predict flight delays. Please.
As in, please and please.
Over 200 cyber attacks blocked during presidential polls, says the federal government. And also Beaver's data intact, INEC tells courts and parties. We can also find here LP and NNPP kick as police barred dogs from polling booths. This is very interesting also because...
everybody's trying to... A lot of them have... The reason for dogs would be that, one, they're trying to advocate for them to feel safe. They want to be able to go with their own security dogs. Two would be that, there's some dogs that are just harmless.
Yeah, but I think the police, may have taken a wrong stance, because they're quoting a part of the Constitution that, doesn't cover the entire country. And of course, dogs have never been declared harmful. You have the right to go out with your pet. So the police, I think is trying to be funny here. Also, Lagos, Kano get lion's share as local governments share 2 trillion Naira. Force scarcity to linger till after election, says marketers. Luckily, it's this weekend. And also... This day newspapers, it says their appeal court rules today on INEC's request to vary order permitting PDP and Labour Party to inspect poll materials. That's going to be a very, very, very interesting ruling And, I'm hoping that, it's the right decision that is taken, to be honest. Chatham House, Nigeria's presidential election not conducted in line with INEC's guidelines. Says electoral body learned no lessons. Fitch downgrades Nigeria's short-term social stability on Tinubu's weak mandate. I'm not sure what's going on here. As much as well, anyway, let's not go too deep into it.
Yes.
But yeah, that's the story. It says Chatham House, Nigeria's presidential elections not conducted in line with INEC's guidelines. Polls, we're not in alliance with any political party, Labour Party declares. Rivers chapter defies order, endorses PDP, NWC dissolves state executive. A little bit of chaos in the Rivers State office of the Labour Party there. And also Tinubu seeks order to inspect election materials. PDP raises the alarm over alleged plan to erase, destroy evidence of rigging. And also opposition parties insist reconfiguration of BVAS will tamper with evidence. We spoke about this slightly with Falls yesterday. But these are the major stories on the This Day newspapers Wednesday morning.
All right, now let's still stay in Nigeria and look at the Daily Trust newspaper. The big story says, we didn't direct banks to disburse old notes. And this is according to CBN. Wow. So there is confusion. This is reminds me of Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, the Center Cannot Hold. Who are we to believe? Supreme Court has said one thing, CBN has said another thing.
It's not even who you're to believe, it's who you would. I mean, you believe both, but
what is going to be the practicality
exactly,
of it, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Nigerians
Whose orders would you follow?
It's just like when an insolent child, your mom says, stand up, and your dad says, no, sit down. Who are you listening to? Exactly. That's what they're doing with us. Business outlets reject notes, direct Apex Bank to obey Supreme Court order, Buhari urged. The president is urging that, oh wow. Anyway, elder statesman Musa Musawa dies in Kaduna. Muslim leaders set agenda for Tinubu. 8-month pregnant Abuja woman gang raped. What? What a story to be taken on International Women's Day. That's a sad one. I don't even know how to feel about this, and I'm hoping that investigation is done into this and the culprits are brought to book very, very quickly. Anyway, governors in last-minute push woo voters with incentives. Buni Inuwa splash $1 billion naira on teachers and business groups. Sanwo-Olu releases impounded vehicles free of charge. Some of the criticism that have followed a lot of these governors would be the fact that people are saying, so a lot of the things that you're doing in the last minute could have been done earlier on, and it might be, they find it insulting to the people of Nigeria that you're doing it in the last minute with the hopes to convince the masses.
Yeah.
Almost like people can't see through what you're doing.
Yeah, it's once again, I agree that it is insulting, but it also shows the character of the persons in power. If these things could be done to ease the suffering of people months ago. And we're talking about impounding vehicles. You know when the story broke? Do you remember when there were pictures and videos of people crying and begging? I remember one particular man. It's almost
like you can't remember, how long ago this happened.
It's a couple of months ago, actually. I remember a particular man who was weeping and begging on camera, begging that his car not be auctioned. The government didn't listen to them in that time, but suddenly, these cars should be given back to the people.
Yeah, I mean, if it was that important in that moment, a lot of people have asked that why wasn't it addressed in the moment? This happened a while ago, right? Well, why wasn't it addressed? Why is it happening now? So it's the timing that's been brought into question. Anyway, talking about the presidential poll, Tinubu, Atiku, Obi assemble legal teams. Lawyer Locon. Over 200 cyber attacks blocked during February 25th elections, and this is according to Galaxy Backbone. And that's all the papers this morning, all on the front pages of the Daily Trust newspaper. All
right. Let's move away from the Daily Trust now to the Daily Nation in Kenya this morning. It says, Uhuru pushed me to sign off 15 billion shillings.
Who did Uhuru push to sign off?
And that's Revelation Controller of Budget, Margaret Nyakango's yesterday. She told the MPs how former Treasury CS Uko Yatani invoked former President Kenyatta's name numerous times to press her to approve questionable payments just 5 days to the August 9th general election. That's on page 7. Cash includes 6 billion shillings paid to Helios to exit Telcom and 9 billion shillings for road projects. Also, Matangi's 7 hours of drama at DCI office. We can also find here Rally R. Maxine to face murder charge over lover's death. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, Rally Ace, I beg your pardon. Rally Ace, Maxine to face murder charge over lover's death. That's on page 3. We can also find here 12 on KPA shortlist as agency hunts for new boss. And we can also find top of the screen, beautifully made there with bold, beautiful purple. Embrace equity, hashtag International Women's Day. And of course, it splashes across the screen faces of some very beautiful women in Kenya. The young innovators transforming digital space across the sectors. Love to see it. Love to see it.
It's a love for me.
Yes. Those are the stories on the Daily Nation this
All right,
morning.
now let's move to Zimbabwe and see the Newsday newspaper. ZEC, of course, which is the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, torches fresh storm. We know that the Newsday newspaper is always very light. At the top of the paper it says, "I've nothing against Al Jazeera." And this is according to Mangudia. Holy 10, master of double standards, according to page 12 of the Newsday newspaper. And the final story, Bona Mugabe files for divorce. The late former president Robert Mugabe's daughter, Bona Mugabe, has filed for divorce against her husband, who's 46. According to a lawyer, divorce summons were filed yesterday at the Harare High Court. That's the update on the stories so far this morning, and that's all we can take this morning on the newspapers. We'll go on a break. When we come back, we'll be looking at some big stories still here on Breakfast Central.